What's up everyone, welcome back to Rob's Gaming Table. Today on the table I have a special video for you. Fantasy Flight Games just published a rules update today for Keyforge, their unique deck game. If you're not keeping up on the rules and you don't feel like reading the article, I'm here to regurgitate it to you and we'll look through it right now together. So here's the article on the webpage I have up on the screen here, explaining some of the rules updates. We saw in their last video where they posted an update. They do a monthly update called the Crucible Cast. You should follow Fantasy Flight Games on YouTube to see that monthly cast. But some of this stuff was mentioned in there and some of it wasn't, but they did tell us the rules update was coming, and here it is. So here's some highlights of the changes in the article. We'll look at them in the rules shortly, but choosing a house, there was an issue with Pit Lord being a Maverick. That has been corrected now. So if you had Pit Lord as a Maverick, you would be forced to name Dis as your active house. And if you didn't have Dis in your deck, you couldn't do anything because the Maverick Pit Lord is not even a discard. It's obviously a Maverick in another house. So to correct that, they said as long you can name, you can't be forced to name a house that's not on your card or that you have a card of in play. So if you've taken one of your opponent's Dis cards and you play a Maverick Pit Lord, you can name Dis. You can be forced to name Dis because you have one of their cards captured that is Dis. That is okay. But you can't name Dis if you don't have a card in control Dis and it's not on your faction card. Therefore, you're not forced to name Dis if you had a Maverick Pit Lord in play. It no longer breaks the game, which is a good thing. The next is huge. So bait and switch. Basically, FFG here is basically saying how we've noticed that the Vault Tours, Shadows has gotten out of control. Everyone's playing bait and switch decks. It's the thing. Shadows is the thing. You look for a Shadows deck. You all know you do it. You open a sealed deck. You don't see Shadows. You go, ah. Or if you do see Shadows, you're like, okay. And then you look at the list, and if you see bait and switch, you're like, yes. So that right there tells you there's a problem in balance, that bait and switch is way overpowered, and FFG feels it so. So they've errated it, actually. So you can see on the screen here, the original bait and switch says, play if your opponent has more amber than you, steal one, and repeat this card's effect if your opponent still has more amber than you. That means you're repeating the whole card's effect, and it keeps looping until your opponent has no more amber than you. So if your opponent was at 10 and you were at 5, you'd end up stealing until you had 8 and they had 7, because they would no longer have more amber than you. So it would just keep looping and looping. So they fixed that, and they've basically nerfed bait and switch here to say, and it's right here on the screen, play if your opponent has more amber than you, steal 1 amber. Then repeat the preceding effect if your opponent has more amber than you. So that means you only repeat the first part of the effect once. So the most you're going to see here is 2 amber stolen, assuming they have 2 more amber than you. So it basically says if your opponent has more amber than you, steal 1. If they still have more amber than you, steal 1 more, stop, and done. That's it. So bait and switch is now a maximum of stealing 2 from your opponent as long as they at least have 2 more amber than you. That's all it says. So it kind of sucks now. It's not the best steal card. Still okay, still steals, but it definitely doesn't steal as much. So things like too much to protect are going to be needed to get an opponent who's gone way over their amber. So gone up to 12 or more amber, and you want to do a big steal, you're going to need like Doorstep to Heaven. You're going to need too much to protect. You're going to need things like that to bring them in check, because bait and switch will no longer do that for you. And it will no longer be abused after you've forged a key, you're down to 0 amber, and your opponent has lots of amber, and you're going to steal, get them off a key, and put yourself closer to the next key. That's kind of not really happening as much anymore. So things like Routine Job, Steal Nice, the new Swindle in the new set, Steals 3, these kind of things, it's kind of on the same level now as some of those cards, and now it's going to make you reevaluate your decks and maybe not go Shadows. And the cool part is this will make you look at some of those decks you've thought were your best decks because they had bait and switch. Now some of the decks that don't have bait and switch are now on a level playing field, and you know these online rating systems are going to have to change, and you're going to have to look through your decks and reevaluate those decks. So I think it's really cool, really good shake up to the meta. We might not see so many Shadows decks everywhere, but I still think we will, because steal is such a powerful effect in the game, and if you want steal, Shadows is mainly where that's at. So the next card is Library Access. Here has been errated. Originally, we know it was abused. We've seen it in a lot of top tables at Vault Tours, Sealed or Archon. These Library Access Nepotent Seed broken combo decks that basically let you play Library Access, pop the Omni Nepotent Seed artifact, which is right here. You can stack this, grab Library Access again from your discard pile on that Library Access logo's turn, and then double Library Access and eventually draw your whole deck, get combos going with like key cheating and whatnot, and just kind of break the game, make it very boring. You know, one person just continues playing solitaire until they've reached their, you know, limit of amber and keys and won the game. So the original text for the remainder of the turn, each time you play another card, draw a card, has been changed to play. Let me get it up in the middle here. Play for the remainder of the turn, each time you play another card, draw a card, and then purge library access. So even in a regular library access deck, there's no chance you're going to draw back around to library access. If you waited for your deck to get small enough, play your library access, start drawing cards, hopefully draw back into library access. Not going to happen anymore. No more Nepotent Seed. It is purged. Gone from the game, out of play. Cannot be used, which I think is fantastic. So again, some other Logos decks that maybe don't have library access. I mean, library access is still good. You're still drawing tons of cards, but now library access, Nepotent Seed decks that were selling for lots of money don't sell for lots of money anymore, I guess. That's not really a combo in those decks. So anyone who's paid hundreds of dollars for them, that's too bad. But maybe you already used it to win a bunch of tournaments, so maybe you felt like you got your value out of it. But either way, on the tournament scene, library access is no longer broken. You're going to get to use it to draw some cards at some point in the game. Kind of like how you can feel it was intended to be used, and then it's gone. So no more library access Nepotent Seed combos at tournaments. Awesome. And then they just have the rules update to the Drummernaut. They actually updated the rules update on the last Crucible cast on top of the original update they really did. So originally you would play this guy and you would be forced to return him back to hand because he's a giant. Then you were may allowed to return a giant to hand. Now it says you must return another friendly giant creature to your hand. So if you do have a giant creature in play, you got to return them to hand, other than the Drummernaut giant out of Brobnar. So let's jump to the rules, see what other updates there are. And if you guys don't know, the rules are online. They get updated every now and then. I recommend going and rereading them, or if you've never read them, go online and look at them. I've found a lot of players make mistakes when they're playing because they only thought the starter rules in the starter set was it. Or they learned from another player secondhand and they miss some base functional rules to the game, and that messes up card interactions, messes up their understanding of the game. So I recommend sending the rules to your buddy who has never read them, or going online and reading them. And here they are. We're just going to look through the updates. And the cool part is it'll actually be highlighted in red. It says right here. And it tells you new erratas added and that kind of stuff. All the updates are right here. And we can quickly go and see by scrolling through them and looking for red in our case. But if you've never read them, like I said, go back and read the rules. So here's the choose a house thing we talked about with the Maverick Pit Lord correction. That's in there. I always like going to the FAQ at the end also to see some stuff. That's some situations that have come up that people have been emailing questions. Usually FFG will wrap those up and stick them in the FAQ, and you know, then you have less rules questions during tournaments if players are familiar with all the FAQ questions and answers before coming to a tournament. So they've updated adjacent here. They've added an entry for adjacent. When a creature card refers to a game element as being adjacent to a creature or being played adjacent to that creature, it's referring to the card being in or played into the position to the immediate right or left of that creature. Also see neighboring. So I guess there was an issue with adjacent. Maybe some people were questioning adjacency as being a card is adjacent that is across in the opponent's battle line, or maybe an artifact below that battle line is adjacent to the creature. I don't know why that would come up, but maybe some of you guys know and will let me know in the comments below. Alpha's been added. That's a keyword from Age of Ascension. Forces you to basically play that card as the first action during your play turn. You must play your alpha card first. Has to be the first action. So you can't even do two alphas in the same turn. Only one happens at the start, and that's it. All right. Deploy, new keyword from Age of Ascension, means you can basically deploy a creature as the deploy keyword into anywhere on your battle line. Kind of shift your battle line around, which is pretty cool. That's all that is. Here we got the legacy symbol in red here. This symbol indicates that the card is a legacy card. So legacy is basically a card coming from a previous set that's not in the current set, but still being printed in, kind of like a legacy, or kind of like a Maverick card. But instead of from another house, it comes from another set, which is kind of cool. Omega, that just means the card has to be played as the last thing you do in your play turn. And you can't do anything else after it. So of course, you're going to play one Omega in a turn, ends your turn, done. Other counters, so this card, if I can find it here, Wretched Doll, that's been spoiled recently. I saw it in a pre-release event I was at, actually. Has action, if there is a Doom counter in play, destroy all creatures with Doom counters, otherwise put a Doom counter on a creature. So it's a new counter you got to keep track of. The new starter set, the old starter set, they don't come with Doom counters. They're obviously going to start using generic counters for other things on cards. We've seen this in other Fantasy Flight, A Living Card games, and other opponent could have one of these in play. He could put a Doom counter on a creature. Then the next person who activates this would actually destroy all the creatures in play with Doom counters on them. So you're going to need another counter. And basically here it says, some cards refer to counters that do not have official components to represent them. Players can use any available resources to represent these counters, such as coins, slips of paper, or even poker chips. These counters have no inherent rules. Instead, the card creates them and provides context of how they function. So list of counter types so far, we only have Doom counters like I showed you on that card. So carry around something else, but no dice. No dice. So you got to come up with, and I'm sure some of the third-party token creators are going to start coming up with their own Doom counters and they'll have something cool on it. But that's kind of neat. Sacrifice, a big reminder here. This is something I saw come up a lot early in the game, but it's a known thing if you play Fantasy Flight games. You can't sacrifice, you can't pay that sacrifice cost with your opponent's card unless it states so. So this says a player cannot sacrifice a card they do not control. So just reminding you that there's some cards in the second set that, you know, say sack a character and they're not very clear. And I saw that rule question come up during our pre-release for Age of Ascension. Here it is. They're adding it in just to make sure you understand that base rule. And we're going to keep going down here. We got some story, yada, yada, yada. Still have never read this part, actually. So I'm not up on the lore. But I do love the game, obviously. And we're just going to get down to the FAQ here. All right. So we got our errata. We already talked about library access, bait and switch, and drummer not. So those are the red updates there. Frequently asked questions. Here's one. My opponent has 14 amber in their pool, and I have 0 in mine. At the start of the turn, I select Shadows as the active house and play the card Bait and Switch. How many times does the Bait and Switch trigger? So it's only going to trigger 2 times is basically all you need to know there. I've already explained all this. This is just them reiterating it so it's fully understood if you don't understand from the errata, which is cool. It just, you know, reiterates it. All right, so oh, here's some more red ones. I have a Maverick Pit Lord in play. This is just basically talking about the forcing the Maverick Pit Lord, which we already discussed. So if you want more clarification on that, read that. What happens if I use Spectral Tunneler on a non-flank creature, causing it to be considered a flank creature, then play Positron Bolt on that creature? Positron Bolt will deal 3 damage to that creature. You will choose one of the creature's neighbors to deal 2 damage to, and then deal 1 damage to the other neighbor of that second creature. So it just kind of shifts where that whole starting a Positron Bolt. So normally people do it to the left or right flank and then feed inwards. This is kind of cool. It makes it a little more dynamic. So if you made a creature a flank creature, you can hit him in the middle and then spread it out to the left or right direction from him that way. So that's kind of cool that they clarified that. Here you go. If I use Gabos long arms to attack a creature without elusive, can I use Gabos's before fight ability to deal damage to an elusive creature instead, or will the elusive keyword prevent the damage? And the answer is Gabos long arms can deal damage to an elusive creature using its ability. The elusive ability prevents damage only when the creature is attacked. Because Gabos long arms is not actually attacking the elusive creature, the elusive keyword does not protect it. So we know this. It's basically Gabos' thing is a direct damage effect. So this bypasses elusive. This just clears that up. What happens if I use the Replicator to trigger the Reap effect of an opponent's Sanctum Guardian? So Sanctum Guardian's Reap effect will do nothing. The effect would attempt to swap Sanctum Guardian in your battle line, but the creature is only allowed to be in its controller's battle line since the effect does also not change control of Sanctum Guardian. It fails to resolve. So Sanctum Guardian has the Reap effect, and you can switch him with a guy in your battle line. But this is saying if you try to copy it with Replicator, you're not going to be able to do it. It just fails if you're copying your opponent's Sanctum Guardian. If I play Mimicry as a copy of an action card in my opponent's discard pile, which card does the rule of 6 apply to? For the purposes of the rule of 6, you are considered to have played the copied card. Okay, that makes sense. Mimicry is kind of playing the card as if it were that card, so it's just adding to that rule of 6. That makes sense to me. I have Grasping Vines under Master Plan. This is neat. If I use Master Plan's Omni effect to play Grasping Vines, can I return Master Plan to my hand before it's sacrificed? The answer is yes. Master Plan's effect allows you to play the card beneath it before sacrificing Master Plan. Master Plan is still in play at the time you play Grasping Vines, and therefore can be returned to your hand using Grasping Vines effect. That is crazy. I do have decks with that in it. I am excited to now do it this way because I never would have thought of doing it that way. I usually just sack Master Plan, put it in the discard pile, play the card, and continue on. I never think of that. So that is very neat. I'm actually gonna try that out. But that's it for the rules updates. That is it. So go, if you want to read more in detail, go check out fantasyflightgames.com And you can check out the Forging the Future, which was posted on May 29th, 2019 to show the new rules updates. I highly recommend you read these rules before going out to any Age of Ascension tournaments, because it does have the clear rules in there and the text for each of the keywords if you're unsure, but most of them are on the cards already. But it's good to just be up to date on the rules before we start the second set here. Even older rules, just make sure you're clear on them. Check the rules. That is it. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button if you want to see more Keyforge videos. If you'd like to donate to support the channel and help us improve here, you can click the link in the description below. Thanks a lot for being here. I got more Age of Ascension tournament videos coming up, so stick around for that. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.